Ukraine's President Zelenskyy is set to speak with European leaders after the U.S. proposed a new plan for peace with Russia. The 28-point plan would require sweeping concessions from Ukraine and give Russia most of its demands, but U.S. officials say it would include security guarantees for Ukraine. Now Zelenskyy's office says they'll discuss the plan with President Trump in the next few days. ABC's Patrick Reevell has the details. Patrick, this is the most detailed plan so far. So walk us through some of the key points in it and how officials are reacting.
Hi, Dan. Yeah, we haven't really seen a plan like this before. It is the most detailed framework that has come out in the efforts to try to end this war. And as you say, it contains some sweeping concessions from Ukraine that would be very painful and perhaps impossible for the country to accept. And it also offers incentives to Russia to agree it. But there are some signs that Russia has at least moderated some of the demands. But in terms of the concessions that Ukraine is being asked to make, it would have to basically cede the territory that is most of the territory that is occupied by Russia, as well as give up more territory in eastern Ukraine. It would also have to put limits on its military. It would have to agree to cap its military at 600,000 men. There are also a number of other very painful concessions, including, for example, there would be a general amnesty for all people accused of war crimes, something that would be very hard for many Ukrainians to accept. But the US, I should say, says that in exchange, Ukraine will receive security guarantees. We heard from a US official last night saying that it would be a NATO-style security guarantee, including potentially even military action from the US and NATO if Russia were to break the ceasefire agreement. But there remains a lot of doubt around that. I think the reactions we've seen from Ukraine so far, we have to divide how the Ukrainian leadership have been reacting and how we've been seeing it more generally in the public. The Ukrainian officials, including President Zelenskyy, have been very cautious. They've said that they will continue to negotiate this and want to engage on it. But we hear from many Ukrainians saying that they see this as simply a capitulation. They feel this would be a surrender that would leave the country more vulnerable to Russian attack in the future, and that it should not be accepted. But I think what we're seeing here is the most serious push by the Trump administration in months to try and force an end to this war, Diane.
And a U.S. official says Zelenskyy agreed to an aggressive timeline for signing a framework for an agreement to start the peace process. So what do you think that means, and what are the next steps?
Yeah, so as we speak, a group of senior American officials are in Kyiv, led by the Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll, who yesterday met with President Zelenskyy and presented this plan. We understand that he's been meeting with senior Ukrainian military and intelligence officials today to continue speaking about it. And basically, the Americans are saying that they want this to happen very quickly. And they have said that President Zelenskyy has agreed to an aggressive timeline on that. I don't think we've heard that from the Ukrainians. What we've also been seeing is reports that have not been confirmed, but they are increasingly appearing, that the Trump administration expects this to be done by Thanksgiving and expects Zelenskyy to sign by Thanksgiving, which would suggest that intense pressure is going to be put on him. We've seen him already speak this morning with European leaders from France, Germany and the UK, urgently speaking with them to discuss this plan. They put out a statement that, again, I would say was quite guarded, but which basically hit on the 2 points that the line of contact, the front line, should be taken as the point for building an understanding on what territory, for negotiations on territory, meaning that basically they don't want necessarily Ukraine to be giving up more territory that isn't occupied by Russia. And secondly, saying that Ukraine's military must retain its capacity to defend itself, meaning that they do not want to see significant limits put on Ukraine's military. But I think what we're seeing here is that the US is forcing both Ukraine and Europe to engage on this plan that it's been drawing up with Russia. And I think we are going to see in the next few days some very, very intense negotiations, Diane.
ABC's Patrick Reevell. Patrick, thank you.